Welcome back to another episode. This is a super big announcement from Ancestry about the ethnicity estimates. And joining me today is the corporate genealogist, Crista Cowan. Welcome, friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back again. I always love talking with you and sharing information with your audience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's so much fun. Well, and also, yes, and it is our 500th episode on
That's
Genealogy
amazing.
TV. 500
Congratulations.
episodes. I know. I still can't believe it sometimes. So Ancestry has graciously given us 10 DNA kits to give away as part of this celebration. For everybody at home who is watching, stick around to the end. I will give you some information about how you can enter to win one of those DNA kits. So, yeah, let's jump into it. We got some big updates, and those are with the ethnicity estimates. Tell us about it, Miss Krista.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who has taken an Ancestry DNA test should be aware that about once a year, typically in the fall, we do a big update. We spend all year working on it. We have a team of population geneticists and scientists and algorithm specialists and analytics that just work really hard all year long to focus on how we can make the data more precise and more informative for our customers. And then we issue that update. We run it all summer long, 27 million kits. We have to be rerun through the algorithm. Nobody has to take a new test. Their new updated results will just appear on their account. And we're really excited that this year's update is probably one of the most exciting we've done ever. So
Fabulous. I'm super excited. So, I have been peeking at mine. And for those of you at home, today, the day this video comes out, is the day that the ethnicity estimates are coming out. Now, is this worldwide?
it is worldwide. So the entire Ancestry DNA database is a global database, and everybody will receive the update at the same time.
Fabulous. Fabulous. All right. So, for those who are maybe kind of new to this and they're not really sure where to go to see this, this is in the origins area. And, I don't know if that's if you want to share a screen or I share a screen or we don't share any screen, we just talk about it.
You can
Uh,
share. Yeah, absolutely.
all right, sure, I will show. So this is my ethnicity estimates, or now called origins, in the origins tab, which I guess I should be pointing over here. So we've got all of these new regions. Tell us about how many new regions we have.
Yeah, it's so exciting. We have increased the number of regions to, I think it's 146 different populations. And that's exciting because if you've ever looked at your DNA origins results before, or if you haven't taken a test yet and can see Connie's here on the screen, what we used to do was give you a list of the regions that you were connected to. And for the average person, that's going to be between 6 and 10. Some people are going to have more, some people are going to have less, but we would do it in descending order of the percentage of your DNA that was connected to that specific region. But as we've increased the number of regions, that list for some people was getting a little unwieldy. The order didn't necessarily make sense to people because, I might have a European region and an African region and a Asian region, and they're all kind of mixed up together. And so what we've done now is we've created what are called macro regions. And again, you can see that here on the screen. And then within that macro region, we've nested these more precise regions. So because we're able to get more and more granular, we thought it made more sense to help people understand their ethnicity based on the macro region of the world that they were connected to, and then provide them that detail underneath that macro region.
Yes. So look at all the different regions we have now, which is kind of fun. And then are these the macro regions that you're talking about?
Yes, as you drill in, you've got the individual regions within each of the macro regions.
Yes.
And you think about it, like you think about how far we've come. So Ancestry DNA launched in the spring of 2012. So we're only, 13 years into this technology and this science as it relates to, this amount of population detail and resolution that we can see. And when we first started, it was pretty much you're either European, African, Asian, or Indigenous American. Like those were the options. And then every year, as we get more data and as the science continues to advance and the ability to tease apart those different regions advances, we're able to break it down into more and more regions. Last year, our focus was on the regions of Africa. This year, our focus was on refining the resolution of those regions in Europe primarily. So a lot of the new regions that you're going to see are going to be from Europe.
Yeah, very nice. Very cool. That is really cool. Some of the ones that I have been exploring, I'm seeing a lot of subdivisions in Ireland, not just mine, but in looking at others'
Yeah.
DNA kits as well. And it's amazing.
It really is. It's fascinating that that's even possible when you think about it, right? Because theoretically, there has been migration and intermixing of populations over time for centuries. And the fact that we can start to identify people connected to a specific region and get as granular as that on an island like Ireland is pretty remarkable.
Remind us again what the time period is.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've always told people your ethnicity estimate is looking at where in the world your DNA was 500 to 1,000 years ago. And your journeys, is what we call them now, the communities, are where your family has lived within the last 300 years. But with this particular update, we're actually starting to see a little bit of the blending of that. And it becomes less about the timeline and more about where are the founding populations for groups of people, whether they stayed in that place or took a journey, migrated elsewhere in the world.
I do love the journeys.
I do too.
And I heard you say the other day that you only have one journey,
I do. Yeah.
but I have a trick to show you more journeys.
Oh,
You ready?
please. Yes, I am.
So over here, when you click on compare,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the type of cousins, these are my siblings, these are some cousins,
Yep.
you actually get, if you know their makeup, right? Because you don't have every branch of their family and whatnot, but you may discover some additional journeys over here. See, for example, here I am, right? And here is another journey that I don't have. Here's another journey that I don't necessarily have. So I don't know if that is something that is helpful or not.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you think about the origins, those regions of the world are really about where you have inherited DNA from. And we don't inherit all of the DNA from all of our ancestors, but our siblings absolutely could have inherited DNA from some of our ancestors that we did not inherit. And so we can be related to populations of people that we just didn't happen to inherit the DNA from. And yeah, I love that you've shown this comparison feature on Ancestry. I have tested both of my parents, and they both have a couple of journeys apiece. I was able to test one of my grandparents before she passed. And so I have access to her journeys. And then we've also tested some of the first cousins of both of sets of my parents. And so that gives us like this kind of level of detail into these are places where you have family who has lived within the last 300 years, even if you didn't inherit that DNA from those particular ancestors.
So for those who are trying to find the journeys, you have to be in the origins tab, right? DNA tab, origins, then journeys, and that'll take you there. Then if you really want to get into the compare, you can either compare up here or you can compare through the journeys. Very cool.
Yeah, so this particular update is an update to origins, and I just want to make sure that that's really clear. Journeys actually are updated on an ongoing basis. So we do the
Okay.
origins update once a year, but journeys can be updated at any time. We have another team of scientists who are continually looking at the data, trying to identify new population clusters within the data. And as more and more people test, we see new population clusters start to emerge. They then do their due diligence with the research, both scientific and historical, to make sure that they've accurately identified that particular population. And then we release new journeys out into the ecosystem about once every 3 to 4 months. So you could have a new journey pop up at any time. And then also, as new people test, there is a possibility that there is an existing journey, an existing population of people that has already been identified that you just didn't have a strong enough of a genetic connection to within the database. So as new people test, you can be pulled into existing journeys at any time. So we hope people come back and see the Origins update every fall, but it's a good idea to get in the habit of just popping in and checking on your journeys once every few months at least.
This is so cool.
It really is.
I
Yeah.
do like this. And I know that's not part of the greatest latest update, but the fact that it's popping up people in my tree that may have been, have ancestors as part of that journey is pretty cool. Let's talk about the origins versus journeys. We have been talking about this, but something when we were on a call the other day and Aaron said something about, and you maybe you can explain who Aaron is, but he was explaining the differences between the timelines for the ethnicity estimates or the origins and the journeys. Can you kind of dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah. Aaron is one of our lead scientists, and he's a brilliant educator. And I always learn things from him. So I love sitting in on calls with him when he's helping to educate people around the kind of the science of this. And like I said earlier, we've always, kind of defined origins and journeys on a timeline because I think for those of us who, live in the world and live life linearly and think linearly, especially as we deal with family history and timelines, that's easy to wrap our brains around. That origins is looking at where your DNA was 500 to 1,000 years ago. And so when you get things in your origins results that maybe don't match up with what you know about your family tree, you have to think about, well, how much of my family tree do I really know back 500 years? I don't know about you, Connie, but I have big holes in my family tree starting in the 1860s on one branch and the 1810s on another branch. And so my tree does not go back 500 years on every branch of the tree. So it would make sense that I would start to receive maybe some regions of the world that I haven't explored yet or that I'm not familiar with yet. But it's been a little bit out of reach because you can't just jump back 500 years. You have to keep going one generation at a time. You can't just say, oh, I have this connection to this place. How do I figure that out? And so that's the beautiful thing about the way that Journeys helps to bridge that gap is that Journeys are telling you this is where you have family who have lived within the last 300 years. So explore this community, get familiar with the records here. This might be a clue that is actually genealogically actionable. So I love Journeys because they do help start to bridge that gap. But like I said, now we're seeing with some of this more defined resolution of the origins, some of these micro regions are getting pretty small, pretty specific, and coming, I think, a little bit closer in time to that 300-year mark. So really the journeys are about where people ended up, and the origins are about where those founding populations came from.
One of the things that I always like to remind people is that ethnicity estimates are estimates.
Yeah, yes.
And they're not the gospel truth. I mean, it could be that, they're going to change and update over time. And so maybe what we do is we start with some of these journeys where we actually can see that I can't really click over it because it'll divulge their names, but I've got 12 DNA cousins in that one
Yeah,
region. And let's go explore their trees because they probably trace back where this line is chasing me back to Europe. They're all clues, but if we're
yeah.
looking at journeys as within a 300 years time span and we're looking at origins farther back, then maybe we start with journeys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Genealogically, that's the smart thing to do. And to your point about comparison, right, that also means that if you've only got one journey, you should be getting other people in your family tested. Always, if there is someone in the older generation living, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, a grandaunt or uncle,
Yeah.
get them tested first. But then if you are the oldest living generation, test your siblings, test your first cousins, because that aggregate of that information is what's going to lead you to those brick wall breakthroughs that we're all looking for.
And to me, this is just so powerful on the journey side where we have these DNA cousins where I can drill into that 23 and see those DNA cousins instead of trying to get overwhelmed with a very long match list.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
focus just on the place that you're most interested in right now.
right?
Absolutely.
And think about it. Then you could go into the whole networks thing if you've got Pro Tools and create networks on those 23 people.
Yeah.
that are in that area at that time. So yeah, fun.
Yeah,
Very cool.
you don't have to figure out how you're related exactly to all of your DNA matches right now. I love that feature about networks. You can start adding your DNA matches, building out their family trees, figuring out how they're related to each other, because that's then going to give you the clue for the next generation to start to figure out how they're related to you. And ultimately, that's really, I think, what we're all trying to do is figure out not just those connections, but how those connections lead us to deeper insights about our own ancestors.
Regions by parent. I'm assuming this is updated as well? Question mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we update origins, this information also gets reflected in how your side view, which is parent one, parent two, breaks out those particular origins. So just a recap of side view. I'm sure you've talked about it before. I'm sure we've talked about it before. But helping people understand that your DNA, you have 20, 23 pairs of chromosomes. They come one side from one parent, one side from the other, but they don't come labeled in your body which parent they came from. And so we can split them out and say, here are the two separate chromosomes that are at, chromosome one, you've got one side and the other. We can break those out into sides. You then have to determine, based on what you know about your parent, which side is your father and which side is your mother. And it's not the same for everyone. So you can go in and edit those labels, and it looks like you've done that for yours, Connie, if you have a clear delineation. If you don't know by looking at their ethnicity, so my parents are fairly homogenous, very similar ethnic backgrounds. It was difficult to tell by looking at their results which side was my dad's side and which side was my mom's side. So I actually had to go into my match list in order to see which parent was paternal and which parent was maternal. I edited the label there, and then that cascades through the entire system anywhere where side view shows up. So it automatically then updated my regions by parent as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, just to think about this for a second, because back before you guys automatically started splitting parent one and parent two, we had originally assigned our own.
Uh-huh.
So these original labels that for some people that says parent one and parent two or vice versa, will these ever go away?
The your labels section.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't expect so. A lot of people did a lot of work there trying to make sure that they were labeling their matches so that they knew which side it came from before we introduced the automated version of that.
Oh,
And
this is Ancestry labels. I'm sorry, I had
yes.
backwards. This is
Yeah.
this is my labels. Okay.
Yep. So we wanted to preserve that work. So your labels will remain there and intact. You can filter on them. The Ancestry labels, of course, are the automated algorithm looking at the clusters of matches to determine which side those matches come to. There are some that are still unassigned, and that's not an algorithm that we rerun often or frequently. So they may stay in that unassigned bucket for quite some time. So that's another reason why you still have the ability on any of your matches to label them with which parent side they came from.
Now, I have to say, this is probably the coolest thing that you guys have done in a while. I mean, I love ethnicity updates, but the clustering match tool thing, bravo, high five, round of applause. How many kudos can I give you?
Well, and this is still very much in beta. It's still a very new feature. There are some great feedback we've received from customers about what they would like to see next. So we can actually talk about what's coming next if you would like to, because we have just recently announced where we're headed with this particular feature. If you want to explain it a little bit first, we can do that as well.
Yes, please. That was going to be my very next question.
Okay. So basically, this tool is taking your DNA match list and it is clustering it around shared matches. And it's a visual representation of a flat list tool that we've had all along. Like you could always look at your shared matches. If you have a subscription, you have access to the full shared match list. Of course, if you have Ancestry Pro tools, in addition to that, you have the enhanced shared match list, which allows you to see not just how much DNA you share with a match, but how much DNA they share with one another. So this clustering just kind of takes it to another level for people who are able to process information more visually. that's super, super helpful to be able to see how those matches start to cluster out.
This is the clusters you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so at a broad level, each one of those clusters is going to represent a different ancestor or a different ancestral couple in your family tree. And then these are all of the DNA matches that you have that are also likely descended from that person. And so right now it's a static feature that Ancestry is kind of in control of, but we are looking forward to making it more dynamic, giving people a little bit more control about how they cluster their own matches.
When this first came out, I immediately identified this first cluster as my Danish ancestors. And some people were saying, I've only got one cluster. I've only got, and so and I'm thinking, okay, well, first of all, I know that it cuts off at 65 centimorgans, right?
Mhm. That is the current cutoff, yes.
And why is that? Because I get a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason just has to do with basic processing power, right? 27 million people have tested it Ancestry DNA, which is by far the largest consumer genetic network of DNA tests in the world. And that means that every single person has tens of thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of DNA matches. And so when you think about the processing power required to, on the fly, because you're getting new matches every day, to cluster these matches into a way that accounts for the most valuable amount of that information, that just becomes like not just cost intensive, but time intensive. Like, how long are people going to sit and wait for their matches to cluster? And so we kind of made an arbitrary cutoff for the beta so that we could see how useful this was for people, how people are using it, if this information is informative at this level. But the next update to this particular feature will give you the ability to manually lower that threshold or even set a window of a threshold of shared centimorgans between you and other matches.
Well, let me explain for those who've never seen this before and they're going, "What are you talking about? And what are these colored boxes?" So I've got the names hidden, but down the left side column and across the top are the same names, the same DNA cousin matches. And so this angular color that is running diagonally down the side here is where they're basically lining up with themselves. And so all of these colored boxes are showing us all of the DNA matches that match with each other. And
Correct.
then the gray boxes, Krista, explain the gray boxes.
Yeah, so the gray boxes are where those people also match with the other person. The horizontal line person and the vertical line person also match, but they do not match the rest of the people in that cluster. And so that becomes informative. Sometimes it is, we think even if we don't come from an endogamous population, we're going to have cousins that match each other, not because they're related to us the same way, but because we might be related to one match on their dad's side, and we might be related to the other match on their mom's side, and they're related to each other through the other parent. And so everyone is going to have matches like that. And that's what those gray boxes represent. People who match each other who just do not match the rest of the cluster.
Fabulous. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Mind changing subjects for a second?
Let's do it.
So recently, I actually saw your video on your YouTube channel, on the Ancestry YouTube channel, and you were briefly talking about the Memories tool and the
Uh-huh.
face match, which I
Yeah.
absolutely appreciate the face match. And you said, I don't know if I can quote you exactly, but you said you've had about a 20% success rate in matching images. I wish, because I have a whole bunch of ancestors from Denmark who did not label the back of their pictures. And so I have all these people that I'm trying to identify. I
Yeah.
kind of have identified them, but I don't have 100%. And I'm just dying for someone to upload another copy of that picture so
Yeah.
that I can match it for sure. So tell us a little bit about that face match picture. And I will open up an example here while you
Yeah.
talk about it.
Absolutely. So Face Match is a new-ish feature on Ancestry that essentially allows you to upload photos to your tree of people that you do not know. So we all have those photos in our collection. Sometimes they're portraits of a single person and we just have no idea who this is, or we have a vague idea of who it might be. Sometimes it's a family photo and we think, oh, I know who these 6 people are, but these 4 people are total strangers to me. And so whether it's a group photo or a single portrait, we give you this functionality to then use the Ancestry AI algorithms that have been trained on literally millions and millions of photos that we have, both from users where they've been identified and attached to a person, but also from the yearbook collections and from passport applications and anywhere where there is a photo that is attached to a person and their information. The AI has been trained on that. So you run this face match tool against this photo, and we give you a list of possible connections or identification of that person. We do label those kind of with the confidence level of the algorithm that this is the same person. We also show you what other trees or records this person shows up in. I would never expect somebody to just accept the first answer we give them, but it gives you a path to further investigate. One of the things I think that is really useful is to learn a little bit about photo clues. So even if you have no idea who this person is, hopefully you know enough to identify an approximate time period for when the photo was taken and about how old this person in this photo is, so that when we give you those suggestions, sometimes you can very quickly rule people out because, oh, this person never was in the same place, this person is way too old, this person is way too young, and you can kind of work through the suggestions that way. The most exciting thing to me about this, Connie, is that right this minute, this is the worst this tool will ever be.
Right? Because not a lot of people, you can see where I was going through the gallery. I've uploaded several unknown, and I've
Mm-hmm.
just got them unknown, however I tag them in
Yeah.
the file name. But you know, I keep hoping.
Yeah.
But one of these days, I'm hoping that we'll be able to find it. And one of the things that I would love to see Ancestry do, hint,
Yeah.
hint, is
Yeah.
to expand this box so we can include the frame, because this is information as well.
So that box is expandable. You have to hover over the bottom corner and you should see like a little,
It's not
uh,
doing it on this one for
no,
some
it's
reason.
not.
Oh,
Oh,
there it
yeah.
goes.
Yeah. And that little triangle there in the corner, there you go.
Yeah, but I was wanting to capture the entire shape.
Yeah, it is called face match. So that is primarily what we are focused on is the face. And part of that is because one of the things we've learned from training the AI algorithms is that it often will take into account things like hair shape or outfit. If we eliminate those things, then you end up with a more accurate face structure that it is actually trying to match on.
So if anybody wants to know how to do this, you come over to the Memories tab and you upload your media up here. And so you don't have to do it from the family tree, especially if you
Correct.
don't know who these people are. Very cool.
It is. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, this is the worst this tool will ever be because as people continue to upload photos, as they continue to tag them and attach them to people in their tree, that continues to train the algorithm. But also, Ancestry recently announced that we purchased a company out of Arizona called iMemories. They're a very well-known, well-respected media digitization company. They'll digitize your old photos and slides and VHS tapes and reel-to-reel and whatever other media you have. And since the purchase, are now actively working toward integrating iMemories into the Ancestry experience. So we will likely see people who haven't had a real interest in family history before, but a lot of us, Gen Xers with baby boomer parents who are starting to downsize their houses or inheriting boxes of things that we don't know what to do with. And we're hoping this will be a path for them to digitize that stuff and then start to identify it, start to build out family trees, connect that information to those trees. And again, that will continue to train the algorithm. So it only gets better from here.
Fabulous. Anything else you want to share? Any more updates that, or visions, the crystal ball for what's on the horizon? How
Yeah,
many different ways can I say it?
I share crystal ball things and I sometimes get myself in trouble because Ancestry is moving forward. We have a new CEO at the helm. I had the opportunity to interview him. We have a video on the Ancestry YouTube channel with that interview. He is someone who has been with the company for 18 years and is so passionate about family history and about the path and the opportunity that we have, not just as a company of ancestry, but as a genealogy community, as a family history community, to really just continue to discover and preserve and share all of the family memories and important moments in history that need to be discovered, preserved, and shared. So thank you, Connie, always for everything you do to continue to
Oh,
educate
thank you.
us
Well, I
as a
love the
community.
platform.
And congratulations on your 500th episode. That's a big
Thank
deal.
you so much. And I will leave a link in the description for that interview on your channel because it was really good. It was really nice to get some behind the scenes conversation with the CEO and yourself. And so very cool. And thank you for joining us. And for those who want to enter that contest for one of the 10 DNA kits, link is in the description box as to how to enter. So thank you again. The contest runs now through October 23rd. So get with it, get on the list, and we'll do a random draw and pull those names. Thank you so much for being with me.
Of course, anytime.